Today I want to show you a little bit how the JSON structure works that we export from our event model. What you see here is our application we modeled in the last few days, our simple quiz application, at least the first few slices of it. And what you can do now is, if you export this, you will see that the exported data is in a JSON structure. So looking at this, we export our example quiz. You can say create config. The generator here is still running from yesterday. If not, you can just start your Docker container as we did on day 2. If you say create configuration, you could here again jump to the real-time prototype, but if you open the details tab here, you see the structure of this data. This is the JSON model that gets exported, and we see the first element here is an array of slices. So we have one slice for create quiz. This is a state change slice. We have one slice for created quizzes. This is our state view slice. And all the slices here are encoded as an array. If you look at the structure here, we see we have an ID, we have title, and we have the context. Each element here is encoded the same way. We have an array of commands, we have an array of events, and we have an array of read models. Not every slice has read models, not every slice has commands. Depending on the slice, these arrays can be empty. So for example, for this state change slice here for create quiz, we can scroll down to the next one. It's here, it's our create quiz slice. The commands here, the command array here is not empty since we have one command here, and you see here, this is the create quiz command encoded in the title. Every element also has a list of fields. Every field you add here is also encoded in this field array here. And fields again have special attributes. They have a name, they have a type, they have an example. An example can be provided on a field basis. I will show you in a second how that works. You can mark the fields as optional. This is basically some metadata that you can provide for the fields. You can mark the field as generated. You can say configure the cardinality of the field. Is it a list or is it a single value? You can define it as an ID attribute, and you can exclude it from an API. This is an attribute you can use to generate, for example, REST APIs where this attribute is simply excluded. All the elements here on the board have the same attributes. So you can have fields on screens, you can have fields on commands, you can have fields on events. All the elements basically look the same and they are encoded the same way. In addition to that, what you also have in this JSON structure, you have the dependencies array. Dependencies is basically the encoded dependencies of each element. So for example, looking at this command here, we have two dependencies. We have an inbound dependency from the screen. So we know the screen admin2 is connected to this command as an inbound, means the arrow is pointing towards the command. And we have an outbound dependency, which is our online quiz created, which means the arrow is pointing towards the other element from the command. This means an outbound dependency. And there are some additional configurations, like for example, to run the prototype. This is how this JSON looks like. And this JSON is basically exported whenever you say create config. We analyze the whole board and this JSON gets created dynamically. So for example, if I say I want to add a new element in my command here and say I want to encode the email and just save it here, I regenerate the JSON for my example quiz. Now if we jump down to our command again, we should see in the fields that now here is the email field encoded in our command. This is basically how it works. Why is this important? Let me show you how the export actually works. If you start your Docker container locally, Miro communicates with your locally running Docker container. So you can start the Docker container. I'm here in my temp folder, made a folder.quiz example, and I will just run the Nebulit CodeGen Docker container. If you now jump back to the Miro board and go to the code export folder here, tab, you can select the quiz example and you should see that the generator is available, which happens right here. If you now say create config, what happens is the Miro board communicates with this locally running Docker container, and if you now look into the folder here, what you see is this config JSON gets created automatically in your local file system. This config JSON here encodes the whole JSON you see here. This means you have the whole configuration available locally to work with your code generator. And this is what we will be doing tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be using this JSON example and build our first code generator based on this. So today, look at the JSON structure, make yourself familiar how everything builds up. It should be pretty readable and pretty understandable. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Tomorrow, we will be using exactly this JSON structure to build your first code generator. See you tomorrow then.